Have you been looking at the front end of your RM or RMZ and wondering how you can spice it up a little bit? Keep on watching. One of the best ways to update the look of your bike is to run a newer fender and number plate. Now this is usually pretty straightforward to do and doesn't really cost that much, and it really transforms the front end of your bike. Now luckily with the Suzukis, we've got a couple different options here. This is the 2008 to 2017 RMZ 450 style. It really flows with the style of these bikes. A little bit more aggressive up front, some holes in the number plate. And we have another option too. And now we've got the 2018 and newer RMZ 450 style. This is a lot more aggressive, really sharp lines, a little pointier in the front, bigger holes on the number plate. This is a stadium plate, so it's got the parts that wrap around the forks. I really like the look of that. It's hard to pick between the older style and the new style. I think this style even looks pretty good. So why don't we pull the old fender and number plate off and see how these mount up. It's got one bolt on top of the number plate, and that's about it. And a few bolts on bottom, and off comes the fender. Now first up, we're gonna mount up the 2018 and newer style, and then follow up with the 2008 to 2017 style. Now each style requires a little different kit, different hardware, different brackets, and so on. But once you see both options, you can decide which style you would like to run on your bike. Now to mount the newer fender, you're gonna have to re-drill a few holes here, and this kit comes with the drill bit to do so, as well as a template, just so that way the holes are perfectly right where they need to be. Now if you bought a kit for a RMZ 250 or 450, the newer models, you actually won't get the template because the fender already has the right holes to mount it up on there. All you will need is the bracket for mounting that number plate. The first things first, we're gonna grab that template. Then we'll need 2 of the flange washers, and we're gonna put them in the fender from the bottom side. Now we're gonna flip the fender over and line up the template with the threaded holes toward the back holes. We're going to take 2 of the bolts, thread it from the bottom side just to secure that template in place on the fender. You want to snug these bolts up, and we're just going to drill through these 2 holes right here. Now it's a little tough because you can see it's right on the ridge, right on the very edge of that ridge. Make sure you're nice and straight here with the drill. Then we're going to remove that template, and we're not going to use this when mounting the fender. This is only for re-drilling the fender. Looks like those drilled out pretty good. We're going to take a knife and clean up any burrs here. And with that, we are ready to mount the fender on the bike. Here we go. Excited to see how this is going to look on here. Now for the fender hardware, comes with all the bolts and washers here. We have 2 shorter bolts. You're just going to use the flat washer on those. And then the 2 longer bolts are going to have a stepped washer. All 6 of these stepped washers are the same. And these 4 leftover stepped washers are going to go on the top side of the fender. They just pop in from the top side. Now these 2 front holes might be a little tricky because they are at an angle, so the washer may not want to stay in place. Looks like these ones are staying in place pretty good. However, if they don't want to stay put while you're putting the fender on, you can put a little bit of grease on the lip here, and that'll help just stick it into the fender like that. Now the easiest way I found to get the fender bolted into place is to get your front bolt, the longer bolt with the flange washer, set up on the extension, slide your fender into position, and line up a front hole. We're just gonna kind of hand tighten it for now. Grab your other side front bolt. Get that started as well. The main thing here is you just want to get all the bolts started before you tighten any of them up. Looks like that lined up perfectly. Now you're going to want to tighten the front bolts first. Snug those down and then hit the back bolts. Now the reason why we went with these really thin head bolts is because these two front bolts are kind of sticking down, and if you used a thicker head bolt, like a regular 8mm head bolt, it would actually contact the tire when the suspension compresses all the way. So we went with a little thinner head bolt to give some clearance there. And there we have it. Fender is nice and snug on there. Feels just as tight as OEM. Now for the number plate, this is going to need an adapter bracket that comes in the kit. So it just snaps right over this hole here. Just buttery fitment there. Throw in the supplied bolt and washer. Make sure it's nice and even on both sides. Now we're ready for the number plate. This slips behind the brake line and it'll go into this little nub right here. That locks it into place. You got two shoulder bolts for the top going into the bracket here. And there you have it. Front plate's all mounted up. Now we've got two things left in the kit, and those are the fork protectors. So if you're going to be running a Cycra Stadium front plate, it has these portions here that zip tie onto the fork, which I really like the style of these fork or these number plates, but if you don't protect the anodizing on the fork, it'll actually wear from the number plate. So we included these vinyl strips here. It's actually clear vinyl, and all you do is wrap it around the fork tube. It's easier to do when the number plate and fender are off the bike. Just wrap it around, and that will protect your anodizing or any type of coating that you have on the forks. The very last thing to do is secure this number plate to the fork. If you're using a Stadium plate here, I just like to run a zip tie from the backside and secure it, and then the nub right here, I'll tuck it kind of in between the fender and the fork so that way you can't see it. So that is the 2018 and newer style. I really like it on there. It's really aggressive. When you're sitting on the bike, it just looks mean looking down this really sharp line fender. So let's move on to the 08 to 17 style and see how that fits up on here. Now it's time for the number plate. Slide it behind the brake line. Line it up with these two tabs on the bottom. There we go. And nice thing about the 08 to 17 style, it just bolts right up to your stock triple clamp. No need for any brackets. And that's all you gotta do. So that is the 08 to 17 style. Man, that looks really good on there. A little less aggressive, smoother lines and whatnot. It's hard to pick between the two though. I mean, honestly, I would go for this just because I personally like the strong lines in the fender. Let me know down in the comment section which style you prefer between the three of them. And if you're interested in grabbing one of these kits to do the restyle we did here, I will have them linked down below in the description. They are sold through my store Prime, and we have kits available for RMs 01 to 08 and RMZs 04 to 17. So whatever style you're looking for, whatever bike you have, we also have restyle kits for Hondas as well, CRs, CRS, so you can transform the front end of your Hondas. If you're interested in one of those, check it out. Now, one thing to note, you might notice the slight color difference between the number plate and the fender. Now, these are two different brands. If you want to do this conversion, I would recommend buying the same brand fender and number plate. That way you have a perfect color match. I didn't do that. I'm not sure why I spaced on that, but it kind of bugs me, so it might bug you guys too. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.